And I'll start by introducing myself. I am Bill Brown. I am the Director of Congregational Vitality for both the Baltimore-Washington and Peninsula Delaware conferences. Tonight, I am joined by Tanya Bennett, our Administrative Operations Coordinator, John Gutierrez, our Applications Administrator and Data Analysis, and of course, David Scholler, our Director of Business Systems. They're joining us tonight to discuss and share about statistical reporting and how to and answer your questions. Just a couple of technical highlights. We are recording tonight's presentation, and so the recording and any PowerPoints will be available either by the end of this week or early next week. And if you have a question, please use the Q&A feature. The chat will not be open for questions. It's also, with almost 300 of you, difficult to keep track of your questions in the chat. So if you have a question tonight, please use the Q&A. And we're going to begin with a word of prayer. Then I will turn it over to our presenters and we will get started. So if you all would pray with me, please. Holy and gracious God, we do give you thanks that you have gathered us together. We are in many different places, from West Virginia to Maryland to the District of Columbia to Delaware, even in Virginia tonight. And although we are separated by distance, O God, you have united us through your Spirit. So we ask for that same Spirit to be with us as we dive into this topic of statistical reports, to know that behind every number is a name, and behind every name is a story, and every story and every person matter to you, O God. So we give you thanks for your guidance tonight in the name of Jesus. Amen. With that, Dave and John and Tanya, I turn it over to you, and I'll monitor our Q&A.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Bill, for that introduction. We are looking forward to presenting tonight on statistical reports. I will give you a quick walkthrough of the agenda. Introductions have been cared for. We will touch on the what, why, and how of statistical reports. We will discuss some key dates and timelines that are important in the process, touch on accuracy, and then we will give you a live walkthrough of the AC Stat system, which is GCFA's reporting site. And then we will also go table by table through the statistical system, going through the questions on each one and taking questions as well from you. And also we will touch on some tools and resources that are available, some during statistical reporting time and others that are available all year round that relate to statistics. So again, all the introductions have been cared for except not present, but a key person in all of this is Paul Eichelberger, our treasurer and chief financial officer, and he's also a director of administrative services for both the Baltimore-Washington and Peninsula Delaware conferences. So Paul sends his greetings tonight. Next slide, Don. So touching on statistics, what we collect, why, and how. These statistics are broken down into three main categories. We call them tables. The first table talks about anything and everything that has to do with participation and membership. So it starts out with some of the really key statistics for a church, and that is the number of members, how those members come and go into the church, attendance at worship services, and also all the various groups that the church has, from Sunday school to UMVIM, you name it. If it's a group that requires participation, that is all talked about in Table 1. So Table 2, it switches gears to the assets and expenses of the church. This is usually of great interest to everybody because Table 2 is where we calculate the apportionments or mission share for the church. So we will definitely spend some time there discussing the numbers and the formulas that go into doing that, and also really try to focus on some of the key areas where folks from time to time can possibly misreport things, and that can have a big impact on your mission share or apportionment. So we will definitely spend some time there letting you know where and how to report the various types of expenses. Finally, table 3 is all about the income flowing into the church. And none of that has anything to do with the mission share or apportionment calculation, but that is thankfully our most straightforward table. And it just kind of breaks down the various streams of income from offering to rent and everything in between. So we like to address every year why we collect these statistics. This is, like most things in the Methodist Church, something that is mandated by the Book of Discipline. The questions that we ask are determined by the General Conference every quadrennium. Typically, there are only a couple questions that are changed in any given quadrennial meeting. And those core questions are mandated for every conference to ask. Statistics are not very good if they're asked in different ways, and so they try to keep a standard there so we can have good comparisons and good metrics. And then each conference has the ability to add a handful of questions that fit that specific conference's needs. Each of our conferences, both the Peninsula Delaware and Baltimore-Washington conference, add a handful of questions, not too many, but that supplement the core set of questions that GCFA and the General Conference ask each conference to do. So, and then how we collect it, the GCFA, or the General Counsel and Finance Administration, maintains a website called stats at .gcfa.org. That system was completely revamped about 5 years ago, and we've had very good luck with that system and gotten very good reviews of that system. It replaced an older system called Ezra. So we will walk you through that again in a live demo. So some key dates. We will we will touch on when you can first access the system to kind of kick the tires, but the really key dates for everybody is all of these statistics are annual in nature. So January 2nd is when you are taking all those totals, whether it be worship averages, finances, what have you. That's the time when you can start entering those into the statistical system. So that system is up and running and ready for entry anytime from that January 2nd date all the way through the deadline of Wednesday, January 28th at midnight. And at that point, we close the system and we start the process of doing some Q&A, and we'll touch on that in a minute as well. So stats, why are they important? It's the old adage, you can't manage what you can't measure. And again, the discipline says we have to. We give you the citations there in the discipline, but it basically says the local churches have to submit statistics once a year to their local conferences, and those conferences can then send those up to GCFA. This is kind of the statistics is really the end of the data gathering season, if you will, that starts with church conference and evaluations and appointments. So it kind of runs through fall and the first month of the previous year, where we gather and report everything that has to do with the life of the church. So what is it good for? What do we use it for? We get that question every year. So really key and foremost is these statistics are evaluating the vitality of our local congregations. We have developed sets of criteria over the years that speak to those vitality metrics. So we look at those every year to see how we are doing. We also want to evaluate churches that may need resources from the conferences. We have grant and loan programs offered, and those grants are typically part of the application process is providing statistics, multi-year statistics as part of the qualification process. So again, that is where this is important. Drawing comparisons between congregations. We'd like to see and like to recognize congregations that have improving metrics, especially in key areas like professions of faith and average weekly worship. So we'd like to track that. And then also amongst the jurisdiction and amongst the Greater Methodist Church, there are always comparisons viewed and tracked between conferences and then the jurisdictions and then the Methodist Church as a whole. So that's all obviously made possible by the submission of your statistics. And then, as I mentioned, this season is kind of wrapping up with evaluations and appointments. The key metrics of any church obviously are reflective of the church and also the leadership of the church. So those are things that the cabinet takes into account when they are looking for the right fit for the right pastor and throughout the itineracy system. So that is made possible again through these statistics. So really important functions and roles that all of these numbers play in the life of the church and the conference. Accuracy. It is very, very important. These statistics, in addition to the reasons I already outlined, they are key to setting the mission share and apportionment, and that in turn sets the entire budget for the annual conference. So as these numbers come in, we use them to set the budget and then adjust it up or down depending on how the statistics happen to be trending that year. So accuracy is really important because once that budget is set, it is very difficult to make adjustments. Really, some of the just common sense ways to do that is good planning and record keeping throughout the year. Um, and double checking your work. And also, and most importantly, we have it in bold, having someone else review your work. I've been doing this for 15 years now. John and Tanya have been doing the same amount or longer. And almost without fail, when we get a church that comes to us a year after statistics and says we have made a huge mistake, um, that usually a factor in that is one person did the statistics, one person looked at them and said everything looks great, and no one else looked at the work. And then typically someone else will come in as the next treasurer or finance chair or what have you, and they will look at the statistics and say, oh my goodness, we've done something completely wrong. So as sure as you may feel about the statistics, please hand them out, give them to your pastor, other committee chairs, and say, hey, could you please look this over, make sure everything looks good. We have a kind of a tongue-in-cheek down there at the end, no fudging or wild guesses. We have had in years past, we've had some folks will get frustrated for one reason or another, and they will just put a bunch of nines in. And needless to say, when there's a number that instead of maybe a couple $100 is maybe $1 million, it tends to throw things off for the entire conference. So please make sure everything is put in accurately. The system really does help now with all of that data entry, flagging things, and asking for additional information when things don't quite seem to look right. So we've seen a big improvement as years have gone by with that. But we always ask you to, again, care and concern for accuracy is really key. And then explaining major differences year over year. As I mentioned, the statistical system will flag things, and typically it is because of a year over year change. Um, if your average weekly worship goes up by 25%, if that actually happened, we will be extremely happy for you and share in your blessings. But that is not typical. So if a number goes up way above what the average or typical variation is throughout a year, the system will just flag it and it will ask you for a brief explanation just to say, can you please explain the big change? We realize sometimes that change is true and a result of some sort of factor. We just want to know that and we've flagged that, and so that we don't call and question you later to say this number doesn't look quite right. So it saves time for you. It really helps maintain the accuracy of everything moving forward and is a really important part of the process. So, as mentioned, the statistical system is located on the GCFA site. Every year we will have some confusion, inevitably, because each of our conferences has systems where people throughout the year spend a lot of time. Peninsula Delaware Conference, that system is Brick River. And then in the Baltimore-Washington Conference, that system is Arena. So people get very used to going there to register for events, do their church conference, get information, you name it, so that when it comes to statistical reporting time, they go there and look for it, and they're looking in vain and they can't find it. So it is because it's a completely separate website. So make note of that. That's where you put all your statistics. It has a separate username and password from those other two systems that I mentioned as well, and we will walk you through that process as well as we go forward. So, more information. We try to really offer as much information as possible on both of our websites. Each conference has a little bit of a variation in the questions that they ask and also the numbering of the questions. So as much as we would like to have kind of one consolidated site with everybody's information, we do need to maintain two different pages for information that's applicable to each. So for the BWC, it's bwcumc.org/stats. And then for Peninsula Delaware, pendel.org/statistical reporting. On both websites, there are search functions, search bars, or a little magnifying glass. If you forget those sites or don't make note of them, usually you can just go in and type statistics, and these pages will pop up right away as soon as you put that information in. So, and then in addition to those web pages and downloadable resources, we also will record this webinar. And typically, from the time we wrap up tonight to the time the recording is available, is about a week or so. We have to trim the video up and get it up on YouTube. And then once that is available, you will see a link to tonight's presentation on that page. So with that said, we'll flip over to the online demonstration. Oh, I'm sorry. And then after, we'll also get going on the online demonstration as well. AC Stats, the reporting site, again, there is a user registration process that we will walk you through. Each year, they reset they wipe out all of the users that have been registered in the system the year before, because there is so much turnover in general at the local church level with church leadership, especially those who are entering the stats. So they have found, and we have found, that it's easiest just to start fresh and have the current volunteers, current pastor, current treasurer, finance chair, you name it, log in with their information and start the statistical process. So we will have a email that goes out to all of our conferences that will contain one of the key components of the login process, which is your we'll call it the GCNO, General Church Number, GCFA number. It's known by different things, but that is a number that's unique to your church, and it is part of the login process along with that password or universal password for everybody. This year it is Stats 2025 with an exclamation point. And then you will have that GCNO via email as well. The system does allow multiple people to register and access the church's information at any one time. We do want to suggest, though, and we do this every year, that although you may have multiple people reviewing it, checking it, you name it, we really do recommend that one person at the most, maybe one person per table, be responsible for the data entry processes. Like most things web-based, the last person that puts the information into a field or an area and hits save, that's the person that's information is going to be stored. So definitely do not have multiple people putting in information on the same table or in the same area, because you will end up overwriting each other's work. So really try to focus the data entry person. We also recommend that to not go and do everything online. We have lots of downloadable resources for the tables. It's usually better to do things in pen and paper, get everything ready to answer any questions that you may have, and then sit down and enter in all the information all at one fell swoop. So the reporting site, when you go in, you will see any information that there's a name and address of your church. We really do ask that you, when you first log in, you make sure that that information is correct. We have a lot of churches with similar names. Thankfully, the GCNO numbers are fairly unique and really not sequential, but we do ask that you confirm that the information that pops up when you first log in is for your church. And then corrections, as we go through our correction season, um, those are going to be submitted through your district administrator as well. So, all right.
So, thank you so much, Dave.
Sure.
Um, I just want to reiterate how glad we are all, so all of us are really glad that you guys are here. We know that stats isn't the most exciting time of year, and that this can kind of be a slog to get through, but we're going to be as clear as possible, and it's going to be fun. So, how the system works. When you're inside the system, you'll see last year's values displayed next to your current year's entry fields. That's incredibly helpful when you're trying to verify the numbers or spot any inconsistencies in the data that you're currently entering. So, for instance, if previous year is, you had 50 people in a certain group, and now you've got 1,500 people, you may want to double check that those numbers are correct. It'll flag, as Dave mentioned, it'll flag for those kinds of discrepancies, but it's always good to make sure that you're checking as you go as well. You can print a blank form for a year-over-year comparison version if you want to work offline, as David suggested. As you enter data, the system will flag large jumps from last year. As we've been noting, that doesn't mean something's wrong. It just simply means it's something that the system wants you to provide a brief explanation. A sentence or two is fine. And these alerts are here to help you and us ensure that your reports reflect reality. It's going to be really important in verifying these things as we go forward. Just to kind of add a little color commentary to what David mentioned, sometimes we'll be going through, we'll see just a really wild number. And our first instinct is to go back to the church and verify, hey, is this really the number you want to put in here? But having an explanation in there that says, hey, we had a really good year this year, that makes it so much simpler instead of us having to chase people down. So really, please utilize those note fields when they come in and try to be as accurate and thorough as possible with those. All right, next slide, please. New for 2025. So it's a little bit of a feature add-on to a feature. So they've allowed account usernames and user-initiated password resets. So there's no need at all now to call district offices or wait for an email response. You guys can do it entirely from the comfort of your seat, as it were. So there's the ability to have multiple usernames, and the username is tied to email addresses. So this will help when pastors or staff have multiple churches that they need to actually enter data for. And will also help you guys with resetting passwords. So if you know the email address you used for any of your usernames, providing that email address on the forgot username or password will allow you to see that information and know which church you're trying to go to. So one trick to do with your usernames is also, if you have multiple churches, for instance, make sure you have Pastor Jim Acme UMC and then Pastor Jim Widget UMC. Just a suggestion. We also have the ability now to print previous stats along with charts. So there's a whole bunch of new prints selections that are in the system I'll show you, but there's also a whole new set of charts that they've added in there for you to visualize your data in new ways and fun ways. And then we also have a question for PDC that's new. It's total building square footage, excluding parsonage. So this is going to ask you to add up the square footage for the entire building complex. So even if you have, a bunch of snaking hallways and stuff like that, like my home church used to have, It's important to capture that. So this is actually really important for understanding cost structures for churches of different sizes so that we can help you guys with guidance and resourcing. And if there's, potential regulations or something like that that governs, environmental systems or something like that for large or small churches, then we can get a heads up on that and know who might be affected by certain things. So, I'm going to do a quick overview of all the tables, and then we're going to get more of a deep dive into how to use the system in a live version here. So, table one is focused on people. So this is where we're going to be entering any information that is regarding the membership of your church. So it's membership, participation, and worship engagement. Here, you're going to report additions and removals from professing membership, race and gender demographics, average worship attendance, both in person and online, and Sunday school and small groups, United Women in Faith and United Methodist Men, mission and ministry involvement. And the most important thing here is in this table, taking time to make sure that the totals align correctly. The system will help you catch mismatches, but it's always good to double check as you're going through. In table two, you have assets, debt, and expenses. Table two moves into financial life. So your assets, your liabilities, operating expenses, capital costs. So a huge reminder for BWC folks, we don't apportion mission-related expenses. So ministries like preschools, after-school programs, food pantries, shelters, AA groups, those are not included in the mission share. And capital expenditures are also a really big error sometimes that happens when it comes to expenses. So big infrequent investments like roof replacements, furnace upgrades, huge tech overhauls, though do not go into the apportioned base. And that's for both that's for both conferences. In table two, compensation. For pastoral staff compensation, everything you report should match what was approved at church conference. So one of the things we get frequently is sometimes there'll be less or more compensation actually reported in that field. It's supposed to be what is actually happening at church conference, what's approved at church conference. But only the real amount of salary you've paid. So if you had a pastoral change mid-year and that shift that occurred, so it's actual on the books accounting for those pastors. Here you're going to include your base salary, cash compensation, Social Security reimbursements, health premium reimbursements, UMPIP contributions, bonuses, gifts, deferred compensation, any conference grants or equitable compensation. But you will not be including anything paid by a partner church or a multi-point charge. So if you're paying across a total charge, it's only what you as a church have personally paid, not the whole charge. And then for pastors' health and pension benefits, which are handled separately, we were not going to include in this table. Table two, program expenses. Under program expenses, we're going to be, there's a few things to keep separate. Do not include, again, capital campaign costs or fundraising expenses. Those have dedicated lines later in table two. And then this section is specifically for program operations. So supplies, rentals, utilities, along with stewardship expenses, consultant fees, and mailings. Table two, part two. There's another category to watch here closely. It's in-out costs. If your church pays for something and isn't reimbursed, for example, youth retreats, mission trips, or church dinners, that should not be counted as an expense. It's essentially a pass-through. So for BWC churches, we also provide a utility expense calculator that allows you to remove childcare and outreach-related utilities for your apportioned expenses. And for table two, the mission share base, it's built from the following items in table two: pastor compensation, pastor housing and parsonage costs, salary and benefits for all non-clergy staff, local program expenses, operating expenses. And then a couple things to just watch out for. Do not include medical or pension benefits for clergy. Again, just reiterating that's not supposed to be included here at all. and do not embed pastoral or staff salaries inside program or operating expenses. So you don't want to duplicate your pastor's salary within the expenses of the church. Those are two separate categories. Um, so this is kind of an accounting tip, just making sure that there's clean, accurate categorization when your accounting allows you to make sure that these are captured correctly within the statistical tables. Table 3 for income. Table 3 covers all income sources for the year. You'll report pledged giving, unpledged but identifiable giving, loose plate, interest and dividends, asset sales, building use and rental fees, fundraising income, capital campaign revenue, memorials, endowments, and bequests, UMM and UWF project income, and general advance and special giving. This table is simply a clear breakdown of the dollars that have flowed into your church. And from here, we're going to walk you through how to use the system in general. So we'll get back to the wrap-up page at the end of the report. Okay, so the statistical reports page, the login's super simple. When you go to the AC Stats website, the login will be, for the first time logging in for the year, you're going to use your church's GCFA number or GCNO. And again, we're going to be sending an email in the next few days that will have each church's GCNO, and that'll be sent to the prime movers within the church for the statistical reports. And then the temporary password, which is stats 2025 with an exclamation point at the end. And just a reminder that your if you don't know your GCNO or GCFA number, after we send the email out and you're trying to log in January and you forget it, we'll have ways for you to reach out and find that. Once you get logged in with your temporary password, the system is going to automatically ask you to register. The GCFA added one of the most requested features. You can pick your own usernames. And you can have multiple usernames tied to the same person. If you serve more than one church, so pastors with 2 or 3 point charge, you guys can finally deal with that without having to have the same login for each church. This year, sorry, moving on to
Actually,
Tanya's
John, I'm going to pause you for a second just because we had a
Sure.
question that came in that before you get in on the walkthrough about one of the tables, and you may get to this later, but the special giving that you indicated on the slides include funds collected and sent to the conference for special Sundays.
Yes. So I believe there may be a difference between how BWC and PDC does this specifically, but there are special lines for specific advanced Sundays. So for you can see Tanya's entering all the information. Anything with a red asterisk is going to be required, so that there's an appropriate way of getting in touch with the individual and identifying folks who are entering data in your church. The address is not required, so you can skip that if you wish, but we don't mind if you put it in there. It's not going to hurt anything. Once you have all that information entered, you should be able to hit register with the local church. And one thing I wanted to note, we kind of bounced through it before I mentioned it. I apologize. But when you initially log in, if you're the first login, you won't see anything else except for register with your church. But if you do log in and someone else has logged in previous to you, you'll see register for your local church, and you'll see a list of the other folks that have already registered. So this is an idea. This is a way you can understand who already might have logged in and been entering data into the table. So if you're going to be doing something that might override what they're doing, you may want to check in with them. All right, so we can hit register with your local church, and you should get you successfully registered thing pop up for you, so we can continue there. And this will take you to your church details. This is where we're going to ask you to verify the name and status of your church, the district, etc. And if there's any changes to be made, you should be able to add those here and hit save. Some of the fields will not be able to be changed. For instance, your church name will stay as it is, GCFA number will stay as it is, district and such. But you should be able to edit pastor will be a field that is editable if so it'll provide a note for us that the pastor information is incorrect there. Now, please don't delay working on your stats if you see something wrong here that you cannot edit. This is not going to affect your stats going to the correct church. As long as you're actually logged into the church with that GCFA number, it will go to the correct church. So you can continue working on your stats. But if you see something that does not look quite right here, just don't make that a reason to stop working. All right. It's going to give you a reason to double check. Not sure why it's giving you the flag there. You should be able to hit save, and it should take you to the annual report. Some required information missing. I'll have to double check that. There might be a required field that's hidden at the moment, but you should be able to go to the annual report from here. So when you click on the annual report, it may take a little time, and this is actually normal because what it's doing, it's retrieving all the information from the database, pre-populating those 2024 numbers from your previous stats, and getting everything set for your church. This is also sometimes it's affected by how long it takes your internet connection or the amount of people actually in the system working on stats at the same time as you in other places around the country. So, one thing I want to point out right at the top, if ever you're having problems, no, sorry, not right at the top. Sorry, if you can scroll down just a little bit, right there, perfect. On the left side, there's a display question help toggle. So if you click on that, that will actually fill in some instruction lines we've added to each of the questions to help identify what each question is asking you if the question itself doesn't provide enough information for you. So if you get stuck and you're not sure what to put in a certain line, pop in that, see if that'll help out. And if it doesn't help from there, again, we'll provide some contact information for you to go and get that help you need. So again, just to reiterate what Dave had mentioned, you do not have to save at all throughout this whole the whole process of entering stats into this table. Once you start entering data in any of the fields, the minute you click out of that field, that data is saved. So, sorry. I also one thing I also wanted to add, if you could scroll back up really quick, Tanya. I wanted to point out this is the one of the other new features. Further up a little bit more, just a little bit more. Thank you. The print button there is what I was talking about, where they've added a few things. So this is where if you wanted to print out a blank form and go workshop it with someone. Yeah, you can click if you can click it, please. Thank you. You can print out a year-over-year report that's just your current year and the previous year. You can print out a year-over-year with blanks so you can fill in some more information. You can print out the current values you have in there, which is just this year's. You can print out a fully blank report that is just this year's questions without the previous years. And you can print out some charts, which are, again, some great visualizations for what your church's trends have been over the last few years. And we can move back down. Thank you so much, Tanya. All right, so table one. Table one starts with membership numbers. The very first number is your ending membership from last year, and it's locked but intentionally. You cannot change it. And you shouldn't. That's your starting point for the year. Any corrections that need to be made are going to be made in the column, in the fields below this. Below that, you're going to see the first group is going to be ways membership can go up. You'll notice words like received or moved in or added in those questions. The next set of questions are going to be the ways that membership can go down. So you'll see withdrawals, deaths, transferred out. Through this, you can add or subtract people for your membership to make sure that by the bottom of this table should be question. I think ignore the question numbers for now because I think it for some reason the test church keeps grabbing different conferences. So we're kind of stuck with how that looks. So ignore the question numbers, but the questions themselves are essentially analogous to what we're going to be dealing with. So professing members should be what your current membership is this year, and that's the actually say at the end of 2025. That's the number we're looking for in that last question, total professing members. So scrolling down, this is where we're going to getting into making sure that the numbers balance back to that professing membership number. So the number that you add into every one of these ethnicities need to add up to the same number as your professing number. So if that last number, what they're showing the total membership by ethnicity does not equal your total professing membership, it'll raise a flag. And this is also where you're going to start seeing there's a more of a specific threshold of increase or decrease. I think 70% is different. Sorry, 20% difference between each year is going to cause that explanation flag to come up. Again, there's nothing wrong. We just want to know what may have happened. Did you guys have a lot of families move in, move out, stuff like that? It helps us to understand how the demographics and why the demographics are shifting in the church. Okay, if we move on to gender, it's going to be the same thing. We want to make sure that the genders of your church all match up, all add up to that professing membership number. And I want to emphasize this is actually where a lot of churches get tripped up. They'll put in the professing number and then forget to change those numbers in their gender numbers in their own tallying. And so they'll add the same number, say let's say someone passes away. And that number isn't recorded in that shift in gender number isn't recorded. That'll make it a disparity between the total professing members and the total gender or total ethnicity numbers. So just making sure that those are tracked all the way through. From here, we're going to move on to worship attendance. So this is these you're going to see in-person attendance and online averages. Sorry, in-person average worship attendance and then online average worship attendance. GCFA provides guidelines on how to count online viewers, and we've linked a bunch of that in the training. But some quick guidelines are count unique connections, not total views, and don't use raw view counts like Facebook has this 3-second views and YouTube impressions and stuff like that. Those are not really helpful. They actually artificially inflate the attendance numbers, which some people may want to do, but it actually hurts us because we don't really know the actual numbers of people that are coming in. But each platform labels their connections that are more reliable. Things like peak live viewers on Facebook or concurrent viewers on YouTube are some good ways to use that. And the other thing is to apply a consistent multiplier for households. Current recommendations for multipliers are 1.5. So if you have one connection, you can multiply it by 1.5 to get the assumed average number of worshipers online. Because the assumption is that there are more people behind the camera or behind the screen watching the worship than there are necessarily represented by the individual connection. And again, we're going to have more detailed information provided by stats and by the stats landing page and via GCFA. And then after that, you're going to see Sunday school, small groups, confirmation, UMM, UWF, mission teams, basically everything that reflects how your church participates in ministry. And just read the wording carefully. Some questions are asking for the number of participants, not the number of events. It's important to make sure because some churches will track it differently. All right, moving on to table 2. Here we're going to have assets, expenses, and compensation. So this is going to be items like church property and assets, loans and debts, operating expenses, capital expenses, compensation, and missional expenses. Actually, pause. Bill, I think maybe we'll pop in right now to see if there's any questions about table one.
Oh, yeah, no, there are questions, John, and I'm going to just go from the very beginning. When you're looking at income and expenses, somebody asked, does UMIF income and expenses get reported?
I don't know what that is.
So I don't know if they're referring to the United Methodist Foundation or not. So if Joseph, who put that question in, would please clarify for us, that would be appreciated. Somebody else asked if they notice on the portions that cannot be changed, if they notice there's an error on the portions that cannot be changed, what should they do, or how do they get those changed?
So yeah, there actually is what the Tanya's highlighting right there, removed or corrected by church conference action. There's also one, there it is, correct previous year's reporting errors of total professing membership numbers by subtraction.
Okay.
And then there's one for addition as well. So we don't at this point in time, 2024 numbers are locked. And they're, for all better words or not, are set in stone. So we're going to use those numbers as they are from last year and correct them using those two lines in table one.
Thank you, John. Let me clear that question out. Previously, new question, previously save, quote, save, was used for the final submission and was used only in that case. Is that still the case?
Actually, Tanya, if you can scroll up real quick, they kind of, oh, dang it. Is this, I don't think they have it there on this one for some reason. Scroll down a little bit to see if I actually have it. For some reason on the test church right now, we can't see it. So this year it says finalize. They've changed the language of the button, so it says finalize. But unhelpfully, it still has a little save icon along with it. So when you are fully finished with your table is when you'd hit finalize. But throughout the whole process, you don't need to hit save at any point.
So it auto saves is what I hear you saying, John.
Correct. Even if you go through finish everything and let it go, all the tables will still be filled in. We just won't know that you're done. So hitting the finalize button basically is initiating the process for finishing your stats.
Okay. Or for making them final.
Exactly.
Exactly. If a second person logs in, will they see the data which was entered by the first person who logged in and entered data?
This is a live system, so as someone is entering data, if you guys are in at the same time entering data, you guys will not see each other's work unless you refresh the page.
Okay.
However, if the pastor A logs in, puts in a bunch of membership data, and then treasurer A logs in and puts in a bunch of income data, treasurer will see pastor's data as long as they logged in afterward. Does that make sense? Or have refreshed the page while pastor's doing it. So I think David mentioned we don't recommend logging in and doing it at the same time, just in case. It even might happen by error where you put your cursor in there and bump a button or something like that, and then you wipe out someone's data.
Okay.
So we would recommend doing it one at a time, not concurrently.
Excellent. All right, so we have had some clarifications. The question about income and expenses from the acronym we did not understand was United Women in Faith. Do you report their income and expenses?
Yes, then they'll come up a little further in number 2. Table 2 has some UWIF income. Table 3. Apologize.
Okay.
So we will be covering that in table 3.
Okay, perfect. And further clarification on the information that may be incorrect, how do we correct it? What they were asking was if they see that the church information is incorrect. So for example, their church is listed as part of a charge or multi-point, but they have not been part of a charge or multi-point for several years. How do they correct church information? Not data, but church information.
Yeah, the actual
about
the church details essentially.
Yes. Thank
So
you.
by the way, Tanya just was over it. If you need to get back to take a look at the church details, you can always access it through this page as well. But the to make a change in the church details for anything that's locked off to you guys, contact your district administrator or whoever we've provided within the for the stats contact in the email that we're going to send out later on this week or next week.
Just a couple of more questions
Sure.
related.
Thank you for the questions.
Yeah, these are actually really, I always say we have some of the best participants of any webinar, I think, in the entire United Methodist Church. They ask the best questions. So about some online questions, online viewers. Could you repeat one more time about how to calculate the online viewers? Maybe a little
Sure.
bit slower. Someone just wants to jot that down.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just as a recommendation, so we will have links to this within the resources. I recommend you taking a look. It's a pretty complex system and an issue. But let me just get back over there. Sorry, get back to my notes here. So the multiplier that you want to use is 1.5 times the connections that you identify within the thing.
The
Sorry.
platform they're using.
Exactly.
And
But
you did mention, John, two metrics, that one that Facebook uses and one that YouTube uses, that people should not use to calculate the number of people
that's
participating
correct.
online.
So the idea is to count unique connections. That's the lingo that goes around. And there are different, and one of the frustrating things, there are different names for different connections within each platform. So you're not going to find consistency with each of these. So you really need to know each platform that you're using. Again, guidance in the resources, I promise. But you don't want to use total views or raw view counts. Those are kind of like the industry terms for these. In Facebook, they're called 3-second views as one of the categories.
Yes.
YouTube has impressions, and there are definitely a few other ones. I don't have them listed in my notes here, but I just wanted to give an example of what to look for. Those are two pretty well used platforms. Zoom is much easier because obviously you've got a specific number of people that are logged into your call, so
Well,
you can
and that's the question that comes up. So someone's talking about teleconferencing. So we do have people who use call-in numbers and Zoom. Would those be counted? Would both of those be counted in the online?
From what I've read,
Okay.
yes. So I mean, if they are not butts and sorry for the
People,
people in pews, if they're not
thank
people in
you.
pews, then they are they would be considered online folks.
Okay.
And it would be appropriate because even with a call, you might have Sister Jane and her husband sitting on a phone on speakerphone listening to the sermon. That's completely appropriate to call that to use the same multiplier as you would for online worshipers.
And two final questions related to this area. Someone's wondering, how often should they update or purge or correct their membership roles?
For the Baltimore-Washington conference, that's actually part of the church conference process. And it's a recommended thing that you are looking through that kind of on a yearly basis. So I believe the discipline identifies a 3-year process. And please,
There is a
Tanya,
3-year process for every annual conference.
right. And that can be continually happening. So as people lapse in their membership, lapse in their attendance, after a certain period of time, it may be appropriate to begin the process that would go through just determining their membership, essentially trying to win them back to attendance and et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
But I don't think there is a set time to purge the membership. It's really go through your membership rules and make an honest attempt to see who you can contact, and if following that 3-year process it doesn't you're unable to retain them, then it would be appropriate to remove them
Absolutely. And last but
via
not
church
least,
conference.
in this section, I'm going to ask the question. I think I know the answer, but I also know not to think I know the answer. Can you still change data after you hit final or finalize?
Yes, you can. up until the drop dead date for our stats submission, which is currently January 28th at midnight. So at that point in time, the stats will be locked and you'll have to go through the validation process to change anything. But previous to that, if you guys have a change, again, we're going to provide contact information within the stats email that's going to be going out. Contact make your corrections within that contact, or contact them to open up your stats tables, and you should be able to go back and then change them.
I'm going to let you carry on. We've gotten through all of the questions related to that area. So continue. Thank you.
Alrighty. And get back into my notes here really quick. Thank you guys so much. Honestly, very good questions. We really appreciate that. As much as we can take care of here and make your life easy, we would love to. So moving on to table 2, again, we were covering assets, expenses, and compensation. This is going to be church property and assets, loans and debt, operating expenses, capital expenses, compensation, and missional expenses. If the wording looks familiar, it's because these questions haven't changed in years. So one of the big areas to watch is capital expenses. These are major, again, infrequent repairs, typically over $1,000. Replacing a roof, doing a big tech upgrade, fixing a furnace, remediating flood damage, stuff like that. Those things do not get brought into your general operating expenses. And this is frequently something that inflates the operating expenses. And this is important to make sure you're tracking, because this actually is one of the prime movers for the mission share expenses. The mission share calculation, apologies. So those must be separated from your regular operating expenses. Otherwise, a portion in mission share will be higher than it should be. For compensation, you'll enter your lead pastor's compensation, associate pastor's compensation, deacons, and then other staff, all separately. Housing, utilities, and reimbursements, all of those have their own spot. Both for PDC and BWC, we've split out the actual costs for the specific items within the parsonage expenses, the housing allowance or parsonage expenses, or rental for parsonages. There are a few cases where a church is actually renting a parsonage for the pastor, as in they're actually paying a landlord to secure a place for the pastor to live as a parsonage. This is not to say we're looking for you to add in this area rental income. This is not rental income for a parsonage. This is actually if you are renting a parsonage for a pastor, for the pastor that's actually serving your church. And be careful not to double count benefits or any other things within these categories. These are all specific categories about compensation or housing. And if you're part of a multi-boarding charge, again, just only report what your congregation actually paid, not the pastor's full salary. So unless, of course, if you have an arrangement where you are paying the full salary of the pastor and the other church is paying some portion of something else, it would then be appropriate to pay the full salary, to list the full salary, unless some other arrangement has been made. This also should be, again, concurrent with what you guys have agreed to at church conference or at the time of appointment. Moving on to table 3. 3 is all about your income. So this is pledged giving, unpledged giving, loose plate, fundraising proceeds, memorials and bequests, rental income. Again, this is where rental income would go, grants, or any designated funds. And one important reminder, if the money comes into the church and then goes right back out, that is an in-out fund, like a reimbursement for a youth trip, etc. We don't count that within this as income. And you should only report a net amount. If your church received a certain amount and then only paid a portion of that amount, you'd only report the net of the amount that you paid out. And that really brings us through the end of the table entry. Kind of breezing through both income and expenses. I think we've covered a lot of the questions that have come up before, but if you right now have any questions about income and expenses, that'd be great.
We do. In table 2, line
Yes.
60, would the musician be included as staff?
Yes.
Are the payments of substitute preachers or speakers included as staff?
Yes. Under that would be correct.
I'm going to ask a clarifying. Would it also depend on how you have it budgeted? So, for example, I know some churches budget guest preachers or guest musicians under a worship line item, so they're counting it as part of their program ministry. If it's a guest, I don't want to confuse things, but I just want to make sure people.
I would have to. I need to get more clarity on that. Actually, Dave, I'm not sure if you have more experience on that. I believe that would still count as staff specifically, because even under a worship line item, the those who are involved with worship, well, the actual worship, as in like
Okay.
the people, the musicians are a great example, are still part of staff.
Musicians,
Um,
I was thinking more like guests, like a
right,
guest
right,
preacher
right.
or someone
Yeah.
who's filling in.
So so we have a couple different categories. So for staff, these are full-time people in the church, or regardless of their specific role. We have another line that talks about, and Tanya, you can scroll down a little
So
bit.
again, these may not be the best lines because I think we're looking at Minnesota's right now.
Yeah, just keep going down. Farther.
It's going to be below all the housing and stuff like that, Tanya. There you go, staff.
Staff.
Yeah. Scroll up, scroll down a little more. So there's the explanations there for the staff. So um, then there's so for anyone that is not staff, that's going to be dependent on where you report is going to be dependent on their function. So if it's somebody that is not staff members, but they teach Sunday school, they would be a program expense. Um,
Or Dave, somebody's asking they hire a musician for once or twice a year to do a special concert. Would
right.
that
So
be
there is outside of the staff salary, there's a all other, and I'm looking for it might be farther down. Yeah, our test church has changed the things.
yeah,
Yeah, so in both the Peninsula Delaware and Baltimore-Washington Conference, there's a staff section, and then there's a all other section for temporary workers and contract workers, where you would put, oh, there it is, for all other church staff. Um, so you will see in the descriptions, and our apologies that this test church has changed. It's something GCFA is apparently needs to tweak. So. And we will include on the downloadable resources some more information on that as well. That has some clarifying information.
perfect. Okay, here some more staff questions. Somebody uses custodial functions on a contract basis. Maybe they use a company. Are those payments included as staff payments or operations?
It should be operations.
Okay. Moving back up, can utility costs over $1,000 per month be considered a capital expense?
Utility costs? No.
No. All righty. Like to clear these out. It's easy. Where would you note expenses paid for landscaping, grounds maintenance, and pest management?
Again, if they're regular maintenance expenses, those would all be operating expenses. If it is, for instance, you had to have a tree removed, and it costs, well over $1,000 or something like that to get it done, then that would be more appropriate to call a capital expense.
Okay,
So
thank
with the
you.
capital expense too, we try to give examples. It's not it's a combination of the amount and the regularity of the expense. So just because, the question that was about the utility expenses above $1,000. Yes, that may be above what the typical threshold might be for a capital expense, but it's a regular expense.
Right.
Month in and month out. So that's not something. So, so for pest control, giving an example there, the monthly allotment that you give a pest control company for issues, that is going to be an operating expense. However, if you find out, for instance, your church has unfortunately had a major termite problem and you have to spend $20,000 for repairs of that problem, that would be a capital expense because that's a one-time or very infrequent, hopefully, expenditure.
Well, and somebody else asked, is there a minimum amount? Is there a minimum amount for a capital expenditure?
We typically like to keep it under $1,500
Under or
because
above?
above, I'm sorry,
Thank
above
you.
$1,500 is the threshold. Otherwise, it gets there's a lot of things that gets muddy as far as the what's capital versus operating. Um, the one caveat we let people know, it doesn't have to be a one-time expense. So, for example, we give the example if you have somebody that's going to come in and repaint your church over the course of 6 months, and you are paying them $6,000, $1,000 a month. Just because the individual payments to that contractor might be below the threshold, you're looking at the total expenditure for that thing. And again, it's an infrequent expense or infrequent need. So that combined with the total cost of that is what clarifies it into the capital expenditure.
Thank you, Dave. And two questions about the utility calculator for the Baltimore-Washington conference. Can that be used for the following? Following groups who rent space: a daycare, a dance studio, and another non-United Methodist church.
So for the utility calculator, we try to let people know it's kind of the best of both worlds. Um, the receiving money for the use of the church does not disqualify you from taking that utility expense deduction. So it's a really good area for a church to look into. And this is for the Baltimore-Washington conference.
And somebody else asks, and I don't know, it may be a little more involved than our time allotted for tonight, but can you explain the utility expense calculator and how to use it?
Yeah, that's probably outside of the
So
your
it would be
time.
best to reach out to Dave or John, or they will have some information in the
Yes.
resources.
Short answer, yes. We will have a more thorough deep dive into the expense calculator. There is a short walkthrough explanation of how to use it on the site that we're updating at the moment. And we'll be adding some more like live walkthroughs using some other utilities to create a more thorough look at that and how to use it. So thank you for the
All right.
question.
And those are all the questions that we have that been submitted so far.
Okay. With that, we are ready to submit our report. I'm going to actually, hey, Tanya, I'm going to send you something in Teams real quick. If you can use this link, this should give you the um, a church we can use for today. Again, thank you for your patience with this, guys. Uh, we know that other churches, other conferences are doing exactly the same thing we are right now. So we think people's toes might have just been stepped on a little bit with the test church. So um,
Do you want me to
interesting
log
time.
on as myself or the test church?
As yourself.
Okay.
Thank you.
hmm
So again, they've changed the verbiage of the actual submit button to be a little less confusing using finalize. And then instead of taking you to a whole new page, um, it should take you to If you go to if you click on the link I sent you, it should be able to take you directly to it this time in Teams. Sorry, Tanya.
No, you're fine.
Um, and the submit area is actually now a pop-out instead of a full new page, which will make it a little easier to understand that you're not leaving your site, and it should be a little more straightforward about how to submit the report. All right. You'll notice up in the right-hand corner there is the finalize button. I'm sorry, right-hand corner, right, if you scroll down. Apologize. So our report is done. We've entered all the data we're supposed to into each of the cells. We've checked it with our friends and loved ones, and we are ready to submit to the conference. So we hit finalize. And we'll notice that there's a bunch of errors that have been found. So the only thing with these, you can click on each of those links, and it'll take you directly to the question in that is it. It should take you to the question that's causing the problem, and allow you to put an explanation in each of those. Hate to make you do this, Tanya. Can you just add some stuff in there real quick? No, just add some lines in there. We're going to make believe that this has um, this is going to be how it's supposed to look for this specific church. Um, the
I'm sorry, my keyboard wasn't working. I had to switch.
It's all good.
Okay, let's try again.
And if you could increase the font a little bit, please, per some of our
Thank you, Tanya.
participants. Thank you, Tanya.
hmm
So again, we're not asking you to put in gobbledygook, but for it will not allow you to submit until an explanation has been added to each of the zones that each of the areas that have been flagged. So
It, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It will not let me add
oh, it's
anything. It's not
that's fine.
open.
That's fine. So when you're fine, when it's completely done, you'll click finalize. All those have been filled in. A final pop-up will ask your name, your email, and role. It's really important that you actually add your role to it so that we can know who to contact if should we have a question about some of the stats. One of the things that we run into frequently is issues with the reporting, and if the pastor was giving their login to other people to enter their information, pastor may not know what the stats are. Another issue that we run into sometimes is that there will be an admin that will be entering the stats, and they actually don't know what the information comes from, and so there may be some back and forth with that. So as close as we can get to the person who actually generated the information is ideal, or to educate the person who's actually entering the information as to what each of those lines are. After submission, the report locks. I think we had mentioned that. So if you need to make corrections before January 28th, you come back to us, given the contact information we're going to send out a little later. After the deadline, you have to go through this validation survey that we're going to send out in February. And that is a wrap. We really, again, really appreciate your attendance here today. We want to make sure that if there are any questions we can answer here now, we'd love to get it done. And
We have
if
one
there's
question in the queue.
sure.
And is insurance a utility or an operating expense?
I believe it's an operating expense.
Correct.
Okay. I do not see any other questions coming into the Q&A. Somebody's asking a question in the chat, and I'm gonna be nice and answer it or ask it. Can we print a blank form now?
Immediately now, no. So we're going to open up stats next week on December, I believe that is the 9th, right, Tanya?
Yes, the ninth.
Uh, so we're going to open on December 9th. We're working on an email to send to each of the churches. It'll be going out to the treasurer, finance chair, and the pastor. Um, and that will include your GCNO and any additional login information that would be helpful for you for your church. And we'll link you out to all the helpful resources that we compiled for you. And this will be for both Pendel and for BWC. Um, and again, there are bespoke instruction table walkthroughs for both conferences. So if there's something that didn't seem to apply to you specifically in this training, we promise we've covered you with the training resources.
Now,
So,
someone is claiming that they just printed a blank form.
oh, excellent.
So
How?
how is great, and it hopefully it's the correct one and not the test church from another conference. So probably best just to be safe to wait till December 9th.
It's possible that there may be forms on the GCFA website um, that are kind of generalized to stats forms. So again, Bill's got the right instinct. Just make sure that you're actually pulling from your church's print menu. That'd probably be the safest option.
All righty. I'm going to open the chat for a second. Please drop your thank yous into the chat for our presenters tonight. This is actually our last Training Tuesday of 2025. We try to get done in December so that we can actually fully immerse ourselves and participate fully in Advent and Christmas. So we try not to offer Training Tuesdays too deep into December, but we will be coming back in 2026. We already have lined up a Training Tuesday dealing with how we can respond to the continuing challenges in the Middle East. We have a Training Tuesday that we're lining up about how churches can engage in recovery ministries. And of course, we'll have other opportunities for discipleship and church growth opportunities as we move into the new year. But John and Dave and Tanya, thank you all so much. This is a very important topic, and you can tell by the questions that people are very invested in getting this right. So thank you for providing such great information and details so that we can at least make this as smooth as possible for our congregations. So again, thank you. Thank you all for participating with us tonight.